Keith Pompey is there from the Inquirer. And, Keith, you are there. But Joel Embiid, he may be there, but he will not play tonight. Load management is the reasoning. It sounded like a frustrated Brett Brown. Did you get the sense that Brett was not too thrilled that he was told his star player will be out due to load management?
I mean, are you talking about yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't there yesterday. Sorry. Mark Narducci was there. I was traveling. But, I mean, I guess, I guess you can get a sense that he could be. I mean, again, I wasn't there.
Right.
I mean, it's one of those things, however, that, coming into the season, none of us expected him to play 82 games. I mean, he even said that. And I think that this was one of the games that they had, penciled as a possibility that he would not play in it. And the fact that it's here and the fact that he's played more minutes than everyone expected, that's what really makes it so shocking that he's not playing. But when you go back to it and you listen to what people said at the beginning of the season, you can understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Keith, is there any reason in particular that this game would have been one that they would have penciled as sitting him?
They won't come out and say it, but, you have to think about, a lot of his ability to stay on the floor, is based on, his fatigue and all this other stuff. And here's a game where, they're playing up in altitude. So guys are going to get more fatigued, are going to get fatigued quicker than they normally would. Again, no one is coming out and saying that. But you have to believe that factor into the decision. Some people can argue and say, well, hey, they had 3 games off. Why not play this game? And then, why not play this game and skip the next game, which is in, Sacramento? But then there's also one of those things where, the Sixers may feel as if that this is a team that they can beat, while resting him. Sacramento, maybe they feel as if Sacramento may present some more problems. And, of course, they want to play him against, the Clippers, the Warriors, and the Lakers. So I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah, and Keith, maybe they did say before, this trip, hey, we got to pick one of these games. This will be the one. But, you talk about he seemingly – would you agree that he is not 100% conditioned yet and that maybe sitting out a game, sets him back a little bit?
Not in this altitude, it won't. I don't think so. I mean, I think that, not the problem. But the thing is, the guy was only – you remember when they said he was only going to play in the teens?
Yes.
Right? So we're saying he's going to play around 16 minutes. Well, the 16 minutes turned into 26 minutes. And then it was 30 minutes the last couple games. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, this guy was missing dunks in the fourth quarter. Typically when you miss a dunk as an NBA-type player, it's because you no longer have legs. You're tired. You're fatigued. And the fact that a 7'2" guy missed 2 dunks in the fourth, 3 overall, that's telling me that the guy is a little tired. He's worn down. So, I think that, and then also we don't know what type of aftermath he has. His knee could be sore. His legs could be sore. Mm-hmm. So I think that, they're thinking, let's just shut it down, try to see if we can come in here and steal a victory. And then, keep it moving once we get to California.
No, I don't know. It's a little early out where you are right now, so you're probably not at the arena and haven't seen him yet. I would have assumed if you were to talk to him, he would not be thrilled.
No, he wouldn't be thrilled. But at the same time, I think, he wouldn't be thrilled. But at the same time, you don't know that. And then also, it's one of those things where, like I said, he was tired the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And this is something that they all knew coming in. Embiid even said that it was one of these things where, he knew that he wasn't going to play 82 games this season. And it just so happens that right now there's a love affair with the Sixers, and a lot of people are excited about how they're playing. He's excited. But this is a reality check. I'm not going to come here and say, oh, my gosh, Joel Embiid is upset. Joel Embiid is this and that. I don't know that.
Yeah.
you know, and like I don't think anyone does. So the worst thing for me to do is to come on a radio show and say how upset a guy is
Right.
when nobody knows it.
Keith Pompey is in Utah. The underlining thing that's upsetting, I guess, to some people is the team's playing well. They've won 4 in a row. They could have a chance to make it 5. And then you say, well, we're resting a guy. And, of course, the conspiracy theorists come out. But you just said something that the Sixers almost feel like they can win without him playing, that's how well they've been playing, that they've been gelling a little bit better, that they feel that they can steal a game without him. And that says a lot about where they are.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you know, Ben Simmons is playing well. And then here's something else that you have to factor in. Like, Richaun Holmes is back. You know, Richaun Holmes was injured early on. You know, now Richaun has a game under his belt. He's going to start. Is he Joel Embiid? No. You know, but is he like an exciting guy? Now, the thing to pay attention to is tonight the Sixers are going to play different. Like, you know, the last game they played, like Joel touched the ball 18 times in the post. They just ran through the 18 times where they gave him the ball in the post and told him to work. Well, with Richaun, you know, he's the type of guy who likes to get out there and run. Ben Simmons likes to run. And then J.J. Redick and them are just going to stop at the three-point line in transition. So it's going to be a different look to the 76ers tonight. And, you know, hopefully, you know, they hope that it's going to work out for them. So I think the fact that Richaun Holmes is ready to play, you know, made the team feel a little bit better about not having Joel Embiid playing tonight.
Hey, Keith, what about Jahlil Okafor? What's the deal with him? Because he did play the last time that Embiid was out when they played in Toronto. Do you expect him to see any minutes tonight? And if not, what's Okafor's future?
You know, the thing with Okafor is, and I asked Brett Brown today at Shoot Around, you know, is Okafor going to play? He said there's a possibility, but it seems more as if, like, you know, he's going to be kind of like how he was before Richaun Holmes came back. It's like if needed, he'll play. Other than that, he won't. You know, and I would think that it would be a pretty good time to play him, you know, just because of, a pretty good time to play him just because, you know, like we're saying, we're talking about altitude. Richaun Holmes only played one game. He played 10 minutes. Amir Johnson is averaging 20 minutes. So, you know, there's like 18 minutes left on the table. And I know Richaun will play more, but you have to believe that both of these guys are going to get fatigued. And it would be nice just to throw Jahlil out there for spot duty, you know what I mean, just so guys could rest. So, I mean, Brett Brown didn't seem too optimistic. He didn't rule it out. But at the same time, I think that it will be in their best interest to give him some money.
Keith, you like how the Sixers have handled this Okafor situation? Is there any interest in him around the league?
I mean, I think if there was interest in him around the league like that, I mean, and I'm not, you know, trying to be smart on job, but I think if there was a lot of interest, he would have been gone. You know, I think that it was one of those things where the Sixers could have possibly overvalued him, you know, and then it was one of those things where Okafor, you know, he had his injuries. You know, he wasn't a pretty good defensive player, you know, and I think that, you know, like there were some trades that were on the table, but the Sixers wanted more. Now you fast forward to this season, and it's kind of sort of like, you know, it's one of those things where some people may argue and say, hey, buy him out of his contract. But when you really think about it, if he's bought out of his contract, the Boston Celtics are going to snap him up, right? They have $8.4 million to give him. And from a public perception standpoint, people are going to say, wow, we gave them the Lakers pick in the Folks trade, and now they just took Okafor from us, you know? And so it comes down to a point is, do you want to do what's right for him, or do you want to do what's right for the organization? So that kind of puts the Sixers in a tough spot right there.
Now, Mike and I had him on the show back in the Sixers Summer Shore Tour when he was down here at the beach, and he had lost weight. He came in better shape. I mean, do you look at Ja as a guy who legitimately can't help this team right now? I mean, is it warranted that these not in the rotation?
Well, here's the thing. It's like, when you think of Brett Brown, he's a defensive-minded coach. Everything he does is based off of defense. So when you look at a guy like a Rashawn Holmes, you look at a Amir Johnson, these are guys who are known as rim protectors in the league. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And then you look at Embiid. Embiid could block shots too, but Embiid is also a skilled big man offensively. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And also, we have to be honest with ourselves. If everything goes wrong, the coach is probably going to be the first one to go. So it's all about survival mode. You're going to put the people out there who you have the most confidence in. And right now, the people he has the most confidence in are defensive-minded bigs who can run the floor and play in the offense that they want to play. Like a prime example, I really like Ja, and I think that the 76ers has always been a bad fit for him. I always said that he was doomed as soon as he was drafted by the Sixers. But if you want to get out and run against the Utah Jazz tonight, all right, is Jahlil Okafor exactly the guy you want to start? You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to factor that in. And again, I know it's a tough situation for the organization. It's a tough situation for Jahlil Okafor. But it's also a tough situation for the coach.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So, so it's like, and unfortunately, this is professional sports where it becomes a business, and sometimes there are some casualties involved.
Keith Pompey's with us here. You mentioned the coach and that, if things went bad, he'd be the first to go. Now, things didn't get off to a great start. They looked sloppy, but they have since really turned the corner. They've closed out some of these games. What have you learned about the coach now that they are theoretically trying to win basketball games? You've been around when they were not concerned about winning basketball games. The message must be that you need to start winning some basketball games, and do you think he has done a good job at steering them towards victories?
I do. The funny thing about Brett Brown, that a lot of people don't realize is that whenever there's been continuity on the team, and there hasn't been a lot over the years, but when you think back to it, whenever, they weren't trying to trade people, or when they weren't cutting people and doing all this other stuff, and he had time to work with people, they always strung together a couple wins, and they would upset a team. And I kind of think that, right now, a lot of it is, once Ben Simmons got a little bit more adjusted to playing the point guard position in the NBA. And when Ben Simmons started, now he wasn't making shots, a lot of outside shots, but he started taking more than he had been, and it kept people honest. And then T.J. McConnell started getting valuable minutes. It just seems as if the Sixers start gelling better. And also, it also took J.J. Redick, it took the guys to get used to playing with him, where he wants the ball at. Mm-hmm. So, so Brett Brown, we can always, say, after a loss, people will say, man, he needs to be fired. He didn't get Embiid the ball in the post. Why did he do this? Why did he do that? But when you really look at it, whenever he has time to work with people, they start playing better. And I just want to add this about Embiid in the post. And it does sound crazy when you say, okay, he didn't give the guy the ball in the post. But there were a couple games where Embiid had 7 turnovers late in the game. And I guess, it's one of those things where, okay, this guy keeps getting stripped. He's not passing out the double teams. Maybe we need to go somewhere else with the game on the line. So I don't fault a coach for doing that, because that means he knows what's going on in the game,
Yeah, no. I think Brown's done a nice job of, after losing a couple of games, theoretically, look, Boston was a 1 seed last year. Washington's a top 4 seed last year. Those are tough games to win regardless, and you had both those teams, and they learned from them. To win in Houston says a lot. The way that they lost the game in Houston at home, picked it up and won down there, I think shows a lot of growth in a short amount of time too, right? I mean, to say, hey, I said if they're losing this game in December, then you got to start questioning. They figured out how to win in that game a week later.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And then, like you said, Boston, I mean, they figured out a way to win that game a week later. And then when we look at it, I know that Washington is struggling a little bit, but, they have an all-star point guard in John Wall. And then, from there, you talk about you talk about Boston, who was 9-2 right now.
Yep.
The best record in the league. And then Toronto, Toronto is a scary team as well. And like you said, they turned it around. And it was funny because, that game, when they lost the game against Houston, it was like everything fell apart. And again, we're talking about practice. Like Brett Brown was like focused after that on closing out games. And I'm not saying he hasn't done it before, because he has. He's always working on in-the-game situations. But it just seems like, if you notice, Embiid, instead of getting stripped, he had a lot of assists by passing out a double team. Guys were hitting threes. So it just seems
he's come
like
a long way there, Keith. He's come a long way in that department.
Yeah, in a matter of 3 days or 4 days.
By the way, the one team they did beat too was they went to Detroit and won. Detroit 7-3.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. That game, it was there wasn't a lot of fans in the crowd, so you could hear everything, right? and at one point, Embiid scored on Drummond, just embarrassed him. I mean, and you heard fans, the Detroit fans, turning on Drummond saying, "You're sorry, Andre. Get out the game, Andre." I kind of felt bad for him until I realized this guy is making way more money than me and my cousins combined, and then I didn't feel sorry for him.
Hey, Jared Bayless not going to play tonight. Is this the same wrist that he had problems with last year?
It's the same wrist. It's a different injury, though. This it's not a torn ligament. The problem right now is he has swelling, and the swelling is not going to go down. I mean, hasn't gone down yet. Now, the Sixers said he's out indefinitely, but he's going to be reevaluated on Saturday. So he's going to miss tonight's game. He's going to miss Thursday's game in Sacramento. But when teams typically tell me or say that we're going to reevaluate him before a game, that's telling me their target is hopefully for him to return on Saturday against Golden State.
Okay.
However, they don't want to come out and say that, because if we all right, he's expected to come back Saturday in Golden State, and he doesn't, then all of a sudden they have to tell us why he's behind. So they're indefinite, but I think it's Saturday.
Real quick, Keith, and appreciate you jumping on out there in Utah. Who's going to start tonight, Amir or Rashawn?
Rashawn's going to start. They want to go with Rashawn because of, the athleticism and this and that, and they also feel like Amir has turned out to be a solid backup in his role, just coming in off the bench, giving them, 15 minutes a game, 20 minutes a game, so they don't want to disrupt that. But also they really like what Rashawn brings in this wide-open pace that they're about to play tonight.
And who picks up those Bayless minutes?
That's crazy. I mean, I think that, at this particular time, I think, of course, it's going to be Timothy Luwalu who's going to probably get the minutes, but I think that Justin Anderson is also going to get a bulk. Who knows if they need a three or something, I could see Stauskas coming in, but I think that we'll see a bunch of Anderson and Timothy Luwalu on the game.
Pompey on Sixers. Follow him on Twitter for tonight's Sixers Jazz game in Utah, and you can listen to that game right here on 97.3. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it, pal.
Thank you, Keith.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas.